Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Road to Washington. And today we gonna speak about limited time user role. But before that, I'm Dhruv Gupta and I've got
Ashutosh Munot. I'm the co-host for Lata Viprata, and recently we started this series for Washington release called as Road to Washington. Just a reminder, or just how you say a recap. Last episode we recorded about the new features for Service Catalog. We will put the link here
yeah.
on the top, so you can follow that link. It was presented by Mr. Dhruv. And
Yeah,
if you
today
have
I'm
any
gonna relax.
questions,
I'm gonna relax today, so I'm just gonna be hosting. So yeah, let's do it. But one thing, we got very good feedback on our features. Like we got the appreciation. Like we were doing deep dives. We were just not showing the features. We were explaining as well, like how you should implement and all. And we are gonna do the same thing today as well. So let's
awesome.
start with the introductory feature. Over to you.
Yeah, so what we are going to discuss today is time limited user roles, which ServiceNow recently came up with. The short intro about this topic is a user can request a role for a limited time, depending upon what roles they can see in the system. So, for example, we will also deep dive into what you can see and what you can't see. But the bottom line is you can request a role for limited time, you get that role for that limited time, and after the time ends the roles are revoked. The the main important point here is, um, what we are going to discuss, just a high level agenda, is we are also going to share our real time examples, uh, then the governance around this, and we are going to show you some things in the system where actually these roles can be used, what are the restrictions, and what are some cons around using this functionality. um,
Pros as well, right?
Pros always we share, but I think we are also making sure that we tell our audience that if you don't follow it in this manner, then easily the pro can be converted into con. So
Is
what I'm
I
going to
always
do
get
is,
confused. I always get confused. Is it time limited or limited time user role?
yes, it's time limited user role.
Are you sure?
100%.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly share my slide. Let me quickly see.
You have slides for this?
Entire screen, and the screen is this. Share.
Ooh, I'm in
Nice.
home.
A famous question, Dhruv. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. So to access this module, uh, as a user admin or as an admin, you can go to user administration, and then you will see time limited user role. Now here you can click on new, then you can add a role. For example, let's take admin as a role because we are going to talk about this uh, in our future, not in future, in our upcoming discussion. And we are going to use a famous test user, Chuck Thomasy. I
Yeah,
think
Chuck is our
everyone
famous.
started.
Chuck is our famous test user.
Yeah.
So
One important thing, if you put the future date here, then ServiceNow will actually really consider that future date. But for this demo, I'm going to go a bit in the past for the start date. And there is a restriction out of the box that you can't do this for more than 2 weeks. So, for example, if I do 30th, and if I say execute a change in production,
you ideally don't need more than 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks is itself is a. I would prefer to
yeah,
have not more than 24 hours or something.
yeah. So if we save this, you will see that there is a hard restriction on it, and you can't save it. So what we
Should
are
have
going
a
to
UI
do is,
policy for that as well. So first story.
yeah. Um, so what we are going to do is from first till let's say 12th, and I'm going to submit this record. So basically, the principle is that Chuck should get admin role for this time. This is the bottom line of this feature. Now,
And can we quickly check whether Chuck has admin role or not?
exactly. So there are two things to this. First, people might think that this functionality creates a record in user, this user has role table, but that's not true. If I open the record for Chuck, you will see here he does not have admin role, right?
So it
So
goes
what?
in the security thingy, like the scope that we can't edit and how the ACLs function.
So what ServiceNow did is ServiceNow is evaluating this table as soon as the user logs in into the system, and it actually does not create any record in this table. So it's all about in the memory somewhere deep down in the core platform functionality. We don't have access to it. We tried to debug it a lot, but we don't see any code around it. So to test this, if Chuck has actually got this admin role or not, what we are going to do is I'm going to use another browser and I'm going to log in so you can see that this is my instance. This is my instance. We have already set a password for Chuck, so I'm going to log in with it. And now you see there was a message on the top which was
Yeah.
saying that the system is actually granting the role to this particular user who is login, and there was a list of the roles which the user was getting. Again, to show out to our audience, I'm going to go to profile first. I'm going to change the view to default because after showing that message, people might think, okay, now it might have inserted the role, right? But here, still the same, no role inserted.
And what's in
To
group?
prove, yeah, what you're saying?
What's in the groups tab? Like, is it
Oh,
added
it's
to
a
any
basic
group?
group, change
Oh, okay.
management.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So to prove that Chuck actually got a admin role, what we are going
Business
to
rule.
do is we are going to go to system uh, system definitions, and you can see he's
Yeah, they
actually
saw all
able
it
to
went.
see everything, right? So for example, he can go and see, for example, dictionaries. So this actually tells you about how the user gets the role, how we can give these time limited roles to a person, and what is happening in background scenes. So is this it? How? But why ServiceNow invented this, or why we as developers are so happy about this particular functionality, is something me and Dhruv can relate, because in our current organization from last year we were trying to build a solution for the exact same thing, because we don't give everyone access to production who are part of core service now teams. So, for example, in this case, Dhruv, he is part of one of our team, and that team does not have admin rights in production, but they have read-only admin rights. Similarly, we have some auditors and some other security officers who might need some roles for limited time to execute their job, to collect the evidences, uh, and so on, so that they can perform their duties and they can perform their audits. So I think, and of course, me and Dhruv did some deep dive into this, is this role is not, this functionality is not only related to admins, it is related to all the roles within the platform. But how to govern this? Because every time, like I said, this option on the left side, let me go back to this option. If you see, if I open the
Table ACLs
application
basically.
menu, yeah, here you can see it inherits the roles from user administration. So either admin, role delegator, or user admin can actually see this. But who is able to create this is something which is very important to show. And I think it's here.
I think it has to be admin
It
or
is user
user.
admin, right?
Okay.
Now, and here you can see, of course, this is the basic script there. The thing which we found out was something really which triggered us with respect to security is, for example, going back to the screen where you can see Chuck is logged in. Once he gets this admin role, right? Once he inherits that role, he can go there and he can edit or create whatever he wants to here, right? But this
And
is
the trick here is one thing that we are missing here is when we were digging, a lot of people have written about this. Everybody was suggesting a record producer kind of a thing. But the caveat over there is record when
and
you
we will
create a
go there.
record. Oh, okay.
We'll go there. So we will show them what you are just trying to tell, that ITIL user and admin user, they have different personas. But before that, I wanted to show that if a user who gets the admin role or a user admin role can actually go here and edit this particular record or create new record.
Delete as well.
Exactly. Delete. Yeah. Very important. If you open this, delete as well. What we are going to do now to govern this is, you might have seen that there should, or every organization follows this, right? There should be a request form to request this kind of functionality. So what I'm going to show you is, first I'm going to delete this, and at the same time I'm going to go to the other screen and we are going to log out. Okay, again log in just to show that Chuck does not have that role anymore. So if I type
Mm-hmm.
system definition,
Okay.
he has lost the roles, right? Log out again. Now, when we were doing our brainstorming session and we were discussing about this, what we thought is this a efficient way to go in the back end and add the roles? Why can't we automate this? So what we did is we created a record producer. Time, I think I have not assigned this to a topic, so it might not show. So I'm going to go to the portal. Apologies for that. Yeah,
So it's a record producer, right?
yeah. So this is a record producer. Now you can see I'm a system admin, right? So I can see all the roles, but not the security admin role. So if I type security, that is, I can't use this for security admin. But if I, let's try that also. If I elevate my role here, and if I reload this, you will see that I can now see it.
Yeah, that's what. Like,
But we are
what
not going to.
as a platform thing, you can only see roles that are at your level or below. So uh,
Yes.
when people suggest like you should have record producers, then I thought like, I mean, you were thinking like, okay, if I have the admin, why I would request the admin?
Exactly. So if I go now to impersonate ITL user, and if I reload this, because this is a reference field to the role table, the user can't also select admin. So we were in a quite of discussion that, okay, then why people will use this functionality if they want to if they want to have, for example, a higher privilege than what they have now. So that is the reason we don't propose a record
Or
producer.
if you want to raise that request for someone else, that makes sense. But it's not automated. It's like a manual thing that one specific person or with specific roles have to do it, like a ops
Exactly.
thing.
So, for example, I'm not sure. Like
Chuck?
Chuck already has ITIL. So, for example, let's say this user, if we want to give this user an ITIL role, we can do it because this ITIL user has access to that role and can read that role. Here, the restriction is followed. Of course, that 2 weeks is the time period which you can use. Now, what happens is when we create, when we do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to again in the impersonation reload this. So this is me. Use Chuck again. Give him admin role. Here I will still follow the same thing. Let's say 11th, change execution. And if we submit, it will create a record here, right?
In the backend,
So
same thing.
yeah. And if I go here now, user administrations, the role is created. Now, if I go again here, you will see a message on the top that system has granted the roles, and you can see that he actually got the roles here, system definitions. So this is about it. But I think there is no governance around this. There is no approval. There is if people wants to have admin role, if they want to request an admin role, they will be not they won't be able to see it on this particular screen. Again, this is our story because what we think is within our organization, let's say we have some read only admins who need admin role in production to execute their change for a limited time. So if those are the use cases which you have, what we suggest is to create a catalog item, have a role field as an option, not as a reference field, but as a select option or a select box where people can select which role they want. Again, just to be sure, this functionality should not be used for all the roles. I think we should limit it for specific set of roles like ITIL, business stakeholders, admins, read only roles, flow designer roles. Those kind of things will really help people to uh, govern this particular process. uh, and we have some real time examples about it, right? Dhruv, we were from last year I'm trying to implement this. We already had some success, but it was too much maintenance to use our own functionality. So we want to use what ServiceNow is providing out of the box, but put some governance above on top of it so that people can request it. A right person will approve it. For example, again, I will take example of Dhruv. If he requests it, his manager needs to approve it, and then the platform team needs to approve it, and then only he will get that role for that particular time. And on the form, what we can do is we can specify for which change or which
Yeah,
incident this particular role is requested for. So once it is implemented, automatically the role is revoked.
I would say like just a thought like initially don't open this catalog item for everyone. Just keep it restricted for few users. Or if you are want to do some change automation, so automatically pick up the plan date and plan start and plan end date for this and assign to gets the required role because change is already approved. So I don't think so any challenge in that front as well. So there are multiple opportunities, but it's just that don't get overexcited. That is the bit. You
Yeah,
need to check it. You don't want to create any leakage. And my preferred would preference would be to have some sort of logging as well as a related list or something where this thing can be added, where we can see what has been done. Obviously, remove the delete functionality for sure. But yeah,
yeah. And also we need to make sure that if you are giving someone an admin role, you should put an ACL on top of the time limited user table that, for example, in this case, if Chuck is logged in, he should he can only read it but can't modify the data. If
no
because
one should be able to modify this data.
modified.
I mean,
Yeah.
you. except the active field, I don't see any value in modifying start or end date. They should be locked.
Yeah, and one more thing which we wanted to test it basically is I'm going to deactivate this now, right? So I deactivated this. Let's go to this and try to log in again, and you will see now this time the roles were not granted. But assume that if you are using a catalog item based functionality or if you are using this record producer, what we will now do is we will again try to give Chuck that admin role, and I will select some start date from, let's say, 29th till, I don't know, 8th. I will say test, and I will submit. So we were discussing this also. What will happen? Now, I'm not going to go to the table immediately, but we were thinking, right, Dhruv, that it should update if the role and the user matches, it should update the same record. Or will it create a new entry into that particular table? So let's have a look what it does. If you see, it creates multiple
Multiple entries.
entries. Now, this is good in a way that if we are asked for a 4i principle, or if we are asked for an evidence that, hey, this user had this role for this time, this is perfect, because then I can prove to the auditors and to someone who is looking into the system that, see, this person had role from this time to this time, and next time he got the role like this. So this is of course an advantage, but the disadvantage is then one user will have multiple entries into this table with the same role. You might have to clean it up after a certain time,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, you can put a check on catalog item as well, but I assume like considering it as the version one, it's a good thing to start with, or I should say, good
Yeah,
enough to start with.
good. Of course, what I would say is the conclusion which we had, the takeaway basically for me is, um, there should be a governance on top of this. Don't get carried away with the functionality. We can use this functionality in a in a proper sense, so that we can also save on licenses. At the same time, we can also make sure that the user experience is seamless, because I we are facing many challenges at the moment where people request few roles but they don't want to pay for licenses, or people want to see extra things in production for limited time. They want to do their job and then get rid of the role. So in those kind of areas, I think this functionality is very good. So that is one of my takeaway. Second is have approvals in place. Again, 4i principle. I think we work for a financial institute, so for us it is very very important to have 4i principle before giving any privileged roles. And then the last point, the most important takeaway for me is, um, basically there is no entry in the system or in the role table when the user gets this role. So please keep that in mind, that you will not see it there. It's somewhere deep down into the system where this role is given to the user, and it is kind of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with or through, like that AWS assume role functionality. So you can assume the role, uh, and that is what ServiceNow is doing, I think, same like other tools.
But I'm curious, like, is it gonna? We usually use Access Analyzer for testing the role things. So does it respect that, or I believe it should.
So what it does is, and again we deep dived into this, that when you use Access Analyzer and if there is an entry into this table, it will use this table as a reference as well. So it will use this role for Chuck when it evaluates the Access Analyzer, or when you are evaluating or comparing the roles. So for example, what I'm going to do quickly is, let me delete, or does not matter. I'm just going to keep it here, and I'm going to go to access analyzer. So let's compare, for example, Chuck table. I'm going to take
Business rule.
incident, and I'm going to, I don't know, let's leave the field like this. So if I click on evaluate, you will see that it is first removing it. Sorry, it is first granting it, checking this, and then immediately it is removing the role, which means that when I click on that evaluate access button, somewhere the system is actually checking, okay, if there is a record in that table, if yes, give that role to that particular person, do this operation, evaluate all the ACLs, and then immediately remove the role from that concerned user. And this way, people can actually use time limited user role also to compare rights between two people. So they can give that role and see if it is solving the issue or not, instead of going to the user and adding the role to the user. So
And the roles, the list that we are seeing is because we are granting the admin role, and
yeah,
those
it's
all
huge.
roles are part of the admin role, right?
Exactly. And now, and here ServiceNow will say or tell you upfront that, hey, there is something in that table which might impact your analysis. To prove this, what we are going to do quickly is I'm going to deactivate this, go back to the
Retest.
results, go back to the
Click on
evaluation again.
use reanalyze button.
Yeah. But now, so it will still give me an error, but we didn't got any uh,
So if you see
adding,
write,
granting, and
delete,
removing.
delete, yeah, it's failed, right? If you look at
Yeah,
the
and these two are failed. In the past, in the previous analysis, I think we can also see that quickly. If you um, if I open this, here we can see it was passed, but
yeah.
when we did it after removing role, it was removed. So that table can be also used to test things quickly with this kind of functionality. But I think this is it. We spoke a lot about this functionality. Um, Again, to conclude, have a proper governance around this particular feature. Uh, this is used by admin and user admin. People who will create a catalog item will face some challenges for giving higher rights than what they have, and so on.
One last question. What's your guess around the pricing? Like, is it gonna consume the admin license or is
I
it not?
don't think so, because uh,
Well, every customer
right,
thinks so.
like, so because I'm pretty much involved in how the license are calculated at the moment, the mechanism which ServiceNow uses at the moment is the role table, right, for fulfillers, let's say, or for application delegated developers. We are not creating any entry there. You saw that this functionality is not creating any entry there. So what I think is there won't be any impact. But again, we need to wait for
Yeah.
ServiceNow.
Could it
Safe
could it
harbor,
be those are hidden
what,
from us? Could it be a
maybe,
possibility?
yeah, but safe harbor, this is what me and Dhruv thinks. So if you want to take any design decision on top of this, please do your own study, consult with your manager, account manager, and then take the decision. But that's it, I think, Dhruv.
Yes, it looks like a good wrap. And for the audience, if you are liking this video, please share. And we'll doing it on random basis, so we can't tell you when we are gonna come again, but we're gonna come soon.
Yes. Okay.
And
Thank you so much, Dhruv,
we
for,
should say thank you all.
yeah, dankjewel, Dhruv, for supporting me in this stream.